It is indeed the renal pelvis. Well done, everybody. Oh, it's all right if you got it wrong, don't worry, Leah. Number 6 was the cortex, Samara. 5 was the capsule, 6 was the cortex, 7 the medulla. I've got them all on the next page, so don't panic if you don't get them all jotted down, okay? I'll put the answers up in a second. Okay, moving on to the full urinary system. What is number 1? It is, yeah. Nice and simple. It's the kidney. Looks like a kidney bean. Also a baked bean, yeah. Sydney the kidney. Number 2. Fabulous. Number 3. Perfect. Number 4. Oh. Hannah, bladder. Fabulous. It is the urethra. Number 5. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. I can see a bit clearer. Oh, not that much. It is. It's the adrenal gland. Well done, everybody. Number 6. Absolutely perfect. And number 7. Fabulous. Well done, everybody. Okay, really good levels of prior knowledge there for our urinary system. So these are the diagrams all labelled up for you, if anybody needs to jot those down. I'll just leave them up there for a second. Emma, when does the renal artery become the aorta? The aorta, Emma, it sort of runs right down the middle. Hang on, let me get a picture. Bear with me. Let me find a picture. Bear with me a second. Okay, it's a person, but you'll still get the basic idea. So, hold on a moment. If we look at this picture here, you see the renal artery comes out and it just branches into the middle. The aorta runs right down the middle of the body. So the artery that is lying closer to the renal, to the kidney, is the renal artery. Okay. On this diagram, the renal artery doesn't look that big, but if you imagine in real life, it's going to be, a little bit longer than that. Yeah, that's correct, Jordan, yeah. Yep, absolutely, Emma, yeah. Okay. The anatomy of our urinary tract. The structure is similar in both. The adrenal gland is the production of hormones, Leah. But it does link with osmoregulation as well. It's mostly for so the adrenal gland releases hormones that help with your blood pressure. The osmoregulation is more about your levels of your electrolytes, so your body salts that are absorbed in and out of your bloodstream, and the amount of water that's excreted or retained, if you will. Have you guys done the endocrine system yet? Have you done any work on the endocrine system? No, it will make more sense when we cover that. Okay, so your anatomy of your urinary tract. The structure is quite similar, okay? They've all got the same organs involved in the urinary tract. So dogs and cats, male and female, have 2 kidneys, 2 ureters, 1 urinary bladder, and 1 urethra. They are slightly different variations of this depending on if it's male, female, dog, or cat. So for example, the urethra in the cat, male, exits here, whereas the urethra in the dog male does this. Out the penis there. The urethras are different lengths, male, female, dog, cat, and that's why urinary problems are more common in male cats than they are in female cats. The urethra is a little bit shorter. One of the reasons. And cats have a caudal pointing penis. Yeah, it's one of the reasons, Rachel, yeah. Okay, if we're looking at our kidneys, so we're usually looking at our diagrams, but if we look at our pictures, you can still see the change in the colour for the different areas, okay? So you can see that the renal pelvis is here, the cortex is along the edge, and the medulla is this middle area. So you can still see, even though it's not a diagram, a definite change in the areas of the kidney. Just to recap over things, what anatomical plane has this kidney been cut along? So it's been cut like this. Which anatomical plane is that? Can anyone tell me? It's not laterally. So there's well done, Emma. I was going to say there's 3 anatomical planes. There's transverse, there's dorsal, and there's median. There's also the sagittal plane as well, but it just runs parallel to the median one. So if that one's a transverse anatomical plane, anyone tell me what this one is? Perfect. Absolutely. Well done. Yeah. Brilliant, Courtney, Jade, Rachel, Emma, Jess. Fab. It is. It's the medial one. So if I was to draw a little stick man, bear with me. There's a stick man easy to draw than a stick dog. This would be the median plane. This would be the transverse plane. And then if I was to draw a stick man on his side, just change the colour. That side on stick man. That would be the dorsal plane. Well done, guys. Well remembered. If we're looking at kidneys under a radiograph, we can see them. These radiographs have something specific in them that are allowing us to view the bladder properly and the kidneys. Anybody know what this is called? Yeah, well done. It's not barium, Rachel and Carolyn. However, that is a really, really, really good guess because barium is a type of contrast media, but we don't use it to view the urinary tract. I don't, you'll learn all about contrast medium when you do your VNO2 unit. Just the fact that it's, it is, absolutely, well done, Emma, well done, Jessica, barium's used for your digestive tract, so your stomach and your intestines. Can anyone hazard a guess and tell me whether, in fact, we'll do it on a poll. Just, a little bit of extra information. Is this a positive contrast media, true or false? So you can have a positive contrast media, you can have a negative contrast media. So true or false, is it positive? This is positive, true or false? You haven't, no, it's just for, see if anybody knows, that's all, Holly. Don't worry if you don't. Extra info. This will all be covered in VNO2. Jordan, a contrast media basically highlights structures in the body. So when we're looking at x-rays, everything shows up as like a grey colour. Fluid particularly shows up as a flat grey colour. So it's really not that easy to view things like the bladder if it's full of fluid. So we'll use contrast media. So in this case, it made it show up white. We can see exactly how big it is. We could potentially see if there's any growths in there. And we can identify the kidneys this way as well because it highlights them really nicely for us. Okay. Those of you that answered true, well done. If it was a guess, good guess. If it wasn't, excellent prior knowledge. Positive contrast media makes things show up white. So if you do a barium study, it makes your gastrointestinal tract show up white. It's a positive contrast study. If you did a negative contrast study, it makes things show up black. So we'd use air for that. So we can look at the bladder through positive contrast studies by using this special liquid that makes it show up white. We can actually do a negative contrast study of the bladder where we insert air into the bladder and it can show up the structures really well. So this has got both. You can see that it's got the black outer ring and then it's got the white middle. So it's a double contrast study, this one. But well done, guys. Just a little bit of extra info there for you. Very much a guess. But was it a guess, Jess? Because sometimes you think you guess things and actually it's an informed guess. Okay. When we're looking at the anatomy of our urinary tract and we're looking at the flow of urine, urine is created in the kidneys. So the kidneys filter the blood, they filter the waste products out of the blood, and they filter it from the kidneys. It travels down from the kidneys down to the ureters. So remember, 2 ureters, 1 urethra. Down the ureters, and it travels into the bladder. The bladder acts as a bit of a storage area for the urine, and then the urine exits the bladder through the urethra, which is branches off here. The bladder's a really specialised organ because it's got these particular cells in there called transitional epithelial cells. And what transitional epithelial cells do is they actually change their shape. So when the bladder fills up with urine, these cells that normally look like this stretch and they become thinner and flatter. And that's why the sides of your bladder wall, almost like a balloon, if you imagine. When you've got an uninflated balloon, the wall of the balloon is quite thick. And then as you blow it up, the sides of the balloon stretch and it goes a little bit thinner. And that's what these transitional epithelial cells do when they fill with bladder. They do. The bladder has stretch receptors in it. Absolutely, Samara. Can you tell us what the stretch receptors do? Yeah, absolutely. Yep. The stretch receptors recognise when this transitional epithelial becomes too stretched, and they send a signal to our brain that notifies us that we need to go for a wee. Okay, there are valves at the end of the ureters, and they allow one-way passage of urine, so they prevent urine from going back up into the ureters. The urine exits the bladder via a sphincter. Anyone tell me what a sphincter is? Thinking back to the gastrointestinal tract, the digestive system. Yeah, brilliant. Well done, Natalie. It is. It's a ring of muscle. The urinary sphincter is under voluntary and involuntary control. Okay, so to a certain degree, you can hold the urine in, but after a while, you cannot. Ureters enter the bladder on the dorsal aspect, which is the back of the bladder, and they enter it about here. Now, what very occasionally can happen is you can get animals born with an abnormality, and the ureters can attach further down than where they should, and they attach below the bladder sphincter, and that's when we can get urinary incontinence, because there's nothing holding that urine into the bladder. Okay, there's different reasons for urinary incontinence. It can occur with age-related changes, but this is a genetic problem. Yes, Hannah, you beat me to it. I was going to say, does anybody know what that condition is called? Brilliant, well done. Yep, it's known as an ectopic ureter. Well done, Hannah. Hannah, out of curiosity, what treatment did you do with it? Did you treat it? Did you? I've only ever seen 2. Oh. Yeah, it's golden retrievers that I've seen it in. I've seen a golden retriever and a Labrador. Oh no.
To actually do, but normally it does quite well.
Did the second surgery work, Hannah? Oh, bless her. Luke, transitional epithelial cells are the special cells that the bladder's made out of. And basically what they do is they stretch to allow the bladder to fill up with urine. So they start off with quite a thick bladder wall when your transitional epithelial cells are nice and round, and then as the bladder fills up with urine, they stretch and become quite flat and the bladder wall gets thinner. And then they've got these stretch receptors that send a message to your brain when they've stretched to a certain point that tell you that you need to go for a wee.
That used to be a very common question that used to come up in the old exams. I don't know if it's come up in the vet skill exams yet, but where are transitional epithelial located? So it's one to remember, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, a little bit of a fact here for you guys.